Okay, so we are going to put these little decals in our fusion buttons. Now, these are convex buttons, all LEDs usually are. There's a couple that aren't, that are like the milky ones from Ultimark and stuff. But you can't put these little inserts inside them and stuff to be protective. You'd have to put it on the outside and eventually wear off and that type of a dealio. These ones are LED buttons, so they're going to shine through, so you'll be able to read it nice and bright and that type of a thing. Now, you can use these inserts and stuff to label buttons, even if you don't want to light them up. You can do that too. We've had clients that do that. We always get that question. You don't have to run power to them, but it is the only way to actually label a button something other than what you buy it as. And right now, for player 1 and 2 with 3 and 4, that type of a thing, your really only options are white and black. You might be able to get something somewhere else, but there's going to be somewhat subpar because there's not a lot of them being made. All right, so I'm going to show you 2 ways to install the decal on here. And I'll explain the reason why. So one is you can put the decal in your button on the table here on the fly, and if you have full access to the back where you're screwing it in, then what happens is you screw it in and your decal's on there and you got your nut on the back and you have to come in from the back and you're turning. As you turn, this might turn just a little, like a little bit of a hair, like a millimeter or so. It might turn just a little bit off tilt. If that happens, then you've got to kind of play with it and keep going with it and moving it and whatever to get it right into space and whatever. And if you're in a real tight space or you can't look around, like you can't get your big bare hands all the way around it, usually that'll happen, like say on a console that you can only reach from the back or whatever. This way probably won't be the easiest way for you to do that. So I'll show you how to put them on when your button is actually on the machine so that you can line it up perfectly every time. But you want to install the buttons and stuff first. So we'll get into that. So I'm going to do the first way of installing this, which is the same way for both. It's just the steps that we take during the process that makes it a little bit different. So with these buttons here, there's a little tab on either side on the inside here. So what you want to do is push that tab in and up, and then you see how the button kind of pops up. Make sure they're both up, and then now you can see a little gap in there where the button has come up. You can take your little screwdriver, your knife, whatever you got, and pop that out. Now, inside these ones, there's your LED, that's a little PCB inside, and then that's the actual button within a plunger within the digital button on that. So there's a little bit of that going on. So these are called Fusion because they're mix between old school buttons with the micro switch and the new Sanwa generation with the PCB and stuff inside. So they're a little bit more reliable, and these ones run at 12 volts, so they're a lot brighter and they give you a little bit more kick and flare. Now, these are the other 2 pieces that come along with this, so you can pop them out and separate it so you can see that. So there's a gap between the 2, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually put our little logo guy on that. So what you want to do, and this is kind of going to be the same type of process for both, but when we do it the other way, it's going to be installed, okay? So this one will be installed, and then where that sits, that's where you're going to plug this on. So I'll show that to you after, but basically we want to get the middle of this as close and as best we can. Get it in there. Good to go. And then we pop this out. Okay, so this is where our X-Acto knife comes into play. We have a little bit of overhang around the edges and stuff. I'm not 100% even on here, but you won't notice that when it's all said and done. You'll see. What you want to do is cut at about a 25 to 30 degree angle, and you want to cut around that rounded edge. It's okay to cut away a little bit of the plastic that's there on that piece. It's not going to ruin it at all. What you don't want to do is leave big chunks of anything in there, because anything that's in here is going to turn this plastic piece like almost like egg shaped and oblong, so that it holds that button down when you plunge it down, and then you'll have to take this apart and trim off of it. So be careful while you're doing it so you don't have to do it twice. It isn't the end of the world to have to do it twice. Just double check your work when you're doing it. So here I'm just scraping off just a little bit excess. All right, so then you put it back together. Make sure you put it back the same way you found it. And then there you are under the dealio, and there you go. All right, so now we've put a decal inside the button. So now you go up here and you put that in, and if you can reach around the back, you take your nut, and I can reach around the back, but I'm also a big guy, so now it's going to be hard to kind of line it up and make sure that it's perfectly straight. See how it's kind of turned on there? I have to kind of come back here, and I have to come back around front, and I have to make sure that it's all good. Right? Now I'm kind of pissing around. And then hold it as tight as you can, and then give it a little bit of a turn. So you only give it about a quarter turn after you do that. You don't want to press too much pressure on it. That'll really kind of make it, like I said before, egg shape, that type of a thing. So this is the other way I do this. So we're going to pop this out. Okay. So now it's completely out. So now we're going to install this button before we go any further. All right. So we're going to go here. I'm going to eyeball it in the back so that it's in the same direction as the other side. Okay. Just so they're kind of similar when we're wiring it on the inside. Okay, but now it doesn't matter 100%. I can just tighten this up. I mean, it matters in the back to me where I can see the direction of all the prongs and everything else. I like to have them all kind of in the same direction and everything else. So it looks nice and neat. Why go through all this trouble if you're not going to finish it off right? Being a weirdo. Anyway, I'm going to switch spots here with my lovely camera person. And now, so what we're going to do is we take that insert. I've taken this plastic piece out, okay, right? So I have just this piece like I showed you before when I was doing it. Now we're going to put that in here like so. Slide it into its spot. Okay, so that's there. It's not going to move. We're all good to go. So whether you do this in a console or you do it on the front face, it doesn't matter. Then you put your decal on as straight as you can. And now you only have to worry about lining it up. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff and it moving across the table and so on and so forth. Okay, so now that's done. Pop this out. Grab our X-Acto knife, do the exact same thing that we did before, and shave off a little bit. Helps if your blade's really sharp, not like mine. You can go over this a few times if you have to. It doesn't matter if you cut it too small, that type of a thing. These decals are clear. I've never had a problem with them kind of showing off any weird things and glares and stuff when you light them up. So I don't think you'll have a problem with that. Okay, so you put it all back together. Good to go. Then you just line up your piece here. Squeeze it into play. Boom, done. Now, it's not going to move. You didn't have to go through all the trouble that I went through before. Now it's just lined up and everything's good to go. Take your little plastic covering off there. And those are good to go. So after you see the end all be all, when we turn all this on, then you're going to see all this stuff light up and it'll all be pretty. If you have any questions, let us know.